time to light the match for the burning truth with Casey Hendrickson.
I have some bad news for some of you folks on the south side of Fort Wayne. Terrible, horrible news. I don't know how you're going to recover from it, but we'll get to that here in a second. I want to thank R&B Car Company, locations in South Bend, Warsaw, and Fort Wayne. Go to rbcarcompany.com. Looks like one of the Starbucks over there on the south side has been closed. They found some cockroaches. So, sorry, folks. It's not great, but I wish you all the best in making sure that you can get a much better cup of coffee. So, hopefully it works out for you. Joining us on the line right now is 3rd District Congressman Jim Banks, now Senator-elect for Indiana. Senator-elect, how you doing, man?
Hey, it's been a crazy week, Casey. Good to be with you.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. I have been very excited and very happy to see these picks, and I'm interested in getting like some of the picks that you're most happy about, and if you have any insight on some of the picks for Trump's cabinet that are coming up. But like, I've got my favorites, but I was kind of curious, since you're a part of this process and you're helping with some of these nominations and these picks, like who seems to have the best appointment here that you're most excited about?
Well, there's so many of them, and I get to vote to confirm all of the nominations as a senator, and I'm excited about that. I mean, the most recent pick, RFK Jr., it should be the least unexpected pick of all of them. I mean, he campaigned with President Trump. Yep. President Trump promised that RFK Jr. would have a seat at the table, and RFK Jr. has been very thoughtful on, this Make America Healthy Again agenda, when record high obesity in America, issues related to vaccines, especially coming out of the pandemic, and mandatory vaccines for kids. I mean, these are conversations that we should be having in Washington, D.C., and talking about healthy food. So I like where we're going with that. I'll tell you, Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon
so good.
Might be my favorite pick so far.
So good.
This guy, I know Pete. He's a reformer. He even wrote a book about getting wokeism out of the military. I mean, that's my biggest mission in the Congress, and it'll be a focus in the Senate. And Pete's just the perfect guy to go into the Pentagon and go after the bureaucracy and the deep state in the building, and get the Pentagon and our military focused on fighting and winning wars instead of all the woke crap that they've been focused on over the last 4 years. So I could keep going, Casey, but this is exciting to me. Donald Trump won the popular vote. He has a mandate to shake up Washington and drain the swamp, and his picks so far reflect that he's going to do everything that it takes to make that happen.
Yeah, and just as an aside, just on the Pete Hegseth stuff, I mean, watching the media collectively have a meltdown and not understand who he really is and what his life experience really is such an indictment on them post-election, where you have tons of other indictments on them. And the fact that they don't know his story, the fact that they're out there telling you he's unqualified, that you have people like Elizabeth Warren, who spent her entire career lying about her heritage, telling you that he's not qualified to be the SecDef, when he's probably the best SecDef pick in my entire life, if not going back a century. I've talked with several of my friends who are recently out or still in, and here's what I've heard, and maybe you've heard the same thing. They are excited that there's finally going to be a SecDef who knows what they go through every single day. Not a career politician, officer, or a civilian who has been recycled after administration, but somebody who actually knows what they go through and has that experience and recent experience under what's been happening in the military currently. I can't explain to anybody how excited they really are.
Yeah, and keep in mind, he has 2 Bronze Stars. Yep. I got to know Pete a long time ago when he ran a group called Concerned Veterans of America, a reform-minded pro-veteran group that led the way, by the way, in the first Trump administration to expand the choice program for better health care options for our veterans. So Pete is eminently qualified to be the Secretary of Defense, and I can't wait to vote to confirm him. But let's compare him for a moment to the current guy, okay. Secretary Austin, and the regime at the Pentagon. These are the guys who pulled out of Afghanistan, killed 13 of our heroes, and embarrassed America in ways that I don't think we've seen in recent history. I mean, one of the biggest embarrassments in all of American history that happened on their watch. So Pete Hegseth knows that we got to get our troops focused on the right kind of training, not all of the silly woke political training that they, the stand down for the first 6 months of the Biden administration, where they were focused on getting extremism out of the military, which in the end was proven to be a complete farce.
Always
what
is.
They were doing. Yep. Pete knows that that's not the focus of the military. The focus is to go out and win wars and keep the military focused on merit, not racial quotas and all the political stuff that these guys have pushed over the last 4 years has made the military weaker. So you asked me what the most exciting pick for me so far. It's Pete Hegseth, and I imagine that there's more excitement to come, but this has been a big week for President Trump, and I'm excited about where we're headed.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it too. And I played for the audience President Trump. I mean, both of them are accurate. Going out there and giving his 10-point plan on really kind of dismantling the deep state. We saw the FBI raid the Polymarket CEO's house and take his phone, like right after the Polymarket accurately predicted the election. It just seems like the FBI is doing what the FBI is doing, and people are very intrigued about what's going to happen with the FBI. We've seen what's happening with the CIA and stuff like that and the DNI, but with the FBI and some of the other big bureaucracies, do you have any insight into that? I know you can't drop names and things like that, but I was just kind of interested in your take.
Well, I mean, the big news in Washington, the big shakeup this, the last 24 hours has been Matt Gaetz, my colleague. We came into the House together, and we both won our first races to Congress in 2016, and we're freshmen in 2017. He's been on the House Judiciary Committee all 8 years that he and I have both been in the House, and we saw the difference between a Trump DOJ and a Biden DOJ. Remember, the last 4 years, Merrick Garland has weaponized the DOJ in ways that are not just un-American, but unprecedented, going after parents, going to school board meetings and calling them domestic terrorists, and all of the aftermath of all of that. So Matt Gaetz knows, like I do, that we have to go in, and when we talk about draining the swamp, we're talking about departments like the Department of Justice and getting rid of these career bureaucrats who have abused their power at these departments. The State Department, Marco Rubio is going to the State Department. The State Department is a very swampy federal department that has career bureaucrats who are left-wing ideologues, and they fight back against the president's agenda, and we need secretaries in all these departments that are going to go in and clean it up. And I think that's what's at President Trump's the top of mind goal for him, is to pick cabinet secretaries who are going to shake it up and go in and get rid of these career bureaucrats who have abused their power.
Now, obviously, there's been quick, swift movement here. It has surprised the Democrats. It has surprised the news media. I think it surprised a lot of the public how fast this transition is happening. And you got the meeting with Trump and Biden at the White House the other day, and I'm looking at CNN just completely stunned that everybody on Biden and Harris's staff is coming outside to witness Donald Trump come in. And they're just beside themselves with all of this. But this has been very organized. I know that you're a part of that. How long has this process really been in place, and why is it moving so fast? Were you just that prepared, or did you have just some kind of a short list of people that you knew you wanted to get, or has this really been something you guys have foreseen for a while?
Donald Trump's been working on this for the transition team that he put in place has been working on this for a long time, and a lot of these names have been vetted. There have been short lists, and I say this all the time. Donald Trump learned powerful lessons the first time around. He trusted the wrong people. He trusted Washington, D.C. insiders in the transition the first time around. And this time he was determined to trust people that were aligned with him and his agenda and the agenda that the voters had elected him to pursue. So a lot of these lists I know because I've had a front row seat to the Trump campaign, and the transition effort. And Donald Trump was so confident. I mean, I was one of the first congressmen that spent time with Donald Trump after he left the White House almost 4 years ago, in that summer of 2000 and the 2021. After he left the White House, he was so confident then, not just about running again, but about winning. And he knew when he got into this race that he was going to win the White House back and go back in, and he wanted to prepare for it the right way and get a team together, and that's what he's done.
Well, I want to ask you this question, and I hope that it's received well, because you were somebody who was very skeptical of Trump early on. I think a lot of Republicans were. You know, you're just coming in, you're skeptical of him. J.D. Vance was skeptical of him. We've got now secured majorities in both houses. The last time that Trump had that, he had people in the Senate who resisted his agenda. I'm getting a lot of questions from listeners in all of my markets, Senator-elect, that are saying, okay, Senator Thune has not been a fan of Donald Trump. And when I interviewed him at the Bean Dinner, he seemed to have a different tune. I'm wondering if the American people who voted for Trump can trust Senator Thune as the majority leader in the Senate to help Trump carry that agenda, or is he also going to be somebody who might be an obstacle to that? And you're going to be in the Senate now. You've gotten to know Senator Thune. What are your takes on that?
Well, this Senate is so different than the Senate in 2017 when Trump first came to town. I mean, you don't have Mitt Romneys or Jeff Flakes or Pat Toomey's, and you don't have these the Ben Sasses. They're all gone. The senators that fought against Donald Trump back then are, by and large, they're all gone. Maybe not all of them, but over the overwhelming number of senators and members of the House of Representatives that fought against Trump in the first term are gone, because Donald Trump has remade the Republican Party. He's turned it into the pro-Trump party, the new Republican Party that I'm proud to be a leader and a part of. It's a new Republican Party that's aligned with him. All those endorsements over the last 8 years, and him getting involved in primaries and supporting people like me in tough races and helping us get elected to the House and the Senate and even governors around the country. This Senate is a much more pro-Trump aligned Senate than what it ever was before over the last 8 years. So when we talk about Senate leadership, I mean, I had to make a tough choice this week, and it wasn't an easy choice. There were downsides and things about all three of them that I could come back to, that reasons to vote for or against all three of the candidates who were running. But John Thune was elected, and ultimately by acclamation on a final vote, a unified Republican conference behind the Republican leadership and behind Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, it's my job as your senator, as the new junior senator from Indiana, to hold John Thune and the Senate leadership team accountable for pursuing the Trump agenda. And that's what I'm going to do for the next 2 and 4 and 6 years.
When Trump was elected in 2016, he made efforts to fix elections in this country, was resisted by the state attorneys generals in blue states. We're hearing rumblings of states like California and others trying to Trump-proof their state. How committed, as we look at the people who are being appointed through this transition and you having a front row seat for all of this, how committed are they to the legal battles that are going to happen trying to implement this agenda as Democrats try to judge shop and fight and resist his agenda from being implemented at the federal level by using the courts?
Yeah, I think this is one of the reasons, Matt Gaetz, that the Department of Justice is important to have an attorney general that understands the ins and outs of what didn't work in the first term. But also we have our own attorney general in Indiana, Todd Rokita, who's very different than his predecessors in being more aligned with this agenda and standing up for the rule of law and understanding the important role that attorneys general play around the country. So I'm optimistic. We've seen states change. We've seen Congress change. This is a powerful new moment. And on top of all of that, Casey, winning the popular vote and winning more electoral votes, and I think, 30-something years, that Donald Trump did better than any Republican in 30-something years in the presidential race. He has a mandate, and he didn't have that in 2016. He's got that in in 2024 as he stands up this administration and we hit the ground running on January 20th.
I'll tell you what, Congressman, we're excited. I'm watching every appointment with bated breath. I know that Matt Gaetz is going to give me a lot of content. I have immense enjoyment out of everything that he does, and I think most people listening know that. So I'm looking forward to him as Attorney General. I think a lot of these picks are really, really good, and I'm looking forward to your time in the Senate as well, and I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Again, 3rd District Congressman Jim Banks, Senator-elect from the great state of Indiana. More coming up on The Burning Truth. All right, I think I teased this a while ago. Didn't get a chance to get to it. I want to thank Congressman Banks, Senator-elect of Indiana, for joining us. A robust interview. Could have talked a lot longer about just that first week of transition, man. Holy smokes. It's been crazy stuff. Can't wait to see who's next. CNN is reportedly set to fire some of its top talent in a round of post-election layoffs. There's rumblings that have been reported by Puck News, and apparently high-paid personalities like Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer have recently been denied raises. Wolf Blitzer, I'm shocked that Wolf Blitzer is even around. I'm convinced that Wolf Blitzer is phoning it in and is only doing it because of the money, and he probably doesn't want to be around his house or something like that. He needs something to do. I don't know. Wolf Blitzer seems like the last time he signed an extension, I was like, really? Because he seemed like he was just trying to get to retirement. So I would expect Wolf Blitzer to probably go away or at least have a limited capacity. Jake Tapper, I mean, they denied him a raise. Here's the thing. Nobody at CNN deserves a raise. Nobody. Make that crystal clear. They're all overpaid. But if you're going to keep anybody at CNN, like Jake Tapper probably has to be in that discussion. I'm not a huge fan, but occasionally he gets something right, at least, which is more than most people at CNN. Chris Wallace obviously left. No big surprise there. Insiders told Puck that new round of firings will likely see on-air talent like them affected as the network's new CEO looks to free up finances amid waning ratings. So, for you feminists out there, I'm gonna tell you, you may want to prepare for a pretty bleak day over at CNN because the women over at CNN are really bad, very underperforming, and have been embarrassed relentlessly over the past couple of years. So I'd expect some women to be on that list, but I guess we'll find out. We'll see. Got more coming up. You're tuned in to The Burning Truth.
The Burning Truth with Casey Hendrickson.
Did you see that Senator Casey is now becoming an election denier and is not accepting that he has lost to Republican Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania? So Senator Bob Casey is the incumbent. He lost. Dave McCormick has been announced as the winner. And so they're challenging several counties. They want to do a recount. And they're challenging these counties that rejected ballots from unregistered voters. He wants to count the ballots from unregistered voters in Pennsylvania so that he can win. Like, just tell us out loud that you were cheating. Okay. Pennsylvania Department of State announced a recount on Wednesday because the results are within 0.5% margin, with McCormick ahead by 27,000 votes. A new timeline now takes over before the results can be certified. So anyway, they're looking at 60,366 uncounted provisional ballots and 20,155 uncounted mail-in and absentee ballots, which is 80,521 total. And it includes all ballots for which county boards of elections have not yet made a final resolution regarding their validity or eligibility to be counted, Schmidt said. The 80,000 remaining votes mentioned by the Department of State in a statement include the 10,000 that were added to the total on Wednesday, Harris said. Tens of thousands of ballots have been adjudicated as invalid by the counties. So Mark Harris, who's the lead strategist for the McCormick campaign, said today that Casey's campaign has sent letters to some counties challenging their rejection of provisional ballots because the voters were, quote, determined by the board not to be registered. So the Casey for Senate challenges the rejection of provisional ballots based solely on the board's failure to find voters' names on registered voter list, according to one of the letters. The Casey position is that they are the ones who need to confirm whether a voter is registered or not take the word of the local board of elections and the Pennsylvania computer voter registration system. So the incumbent Democrat is saying, listen, the Pennsylvania computer voter registration system, the system that has a list of all registered voters, can't be trusted. And neither can the local boards of elections. They can't be trusted either. So just because somebody mailed a ballot in and they weren't in the state registration system doesn't mean it was an illegal vote. I don't know. I'm torn on this. Like, part of me is just wanting to do what the Democrats did. And the other part of me is just, all right, Democrats, go ahead and investigate this. But you have to monitor them. You've got to be transparent about it, because they're going to find some stuff that is going to go back to the 2020 election. We know that, especially in Pennsylvania. And they're going to be forced to admit that there's been problems. So it would be potentially beneficial if they actually investigate and look into this. Now, of course, if you're looking at the law in the state, there is absolutely no precedent or history of counting unregistered voters when they cast a ballot in Pennsylvania. So if their name isn't in the voter registration system and the local boards of elections can't find their name registered anywhere, the ballot should not be counted. And of course, Senator Casey is saying that they should be counted, and he's still fundraising off of this. Isn't that election denial? Isn't that, what was the word that that's right, unpatriotic. Isn't that what we're supposed to be dealing with? Unpatriotic, right? I was going to ask Jim Banks about this, but I didn't have time. The FDA has made an announcement that there are new rules for TV drug advertising. Really? So according to Wayne.com, which is via the Associated Press, those ever-present TV drug ads during showing patients hiking and biking and enjoying a day at the beach could soon have a different look. New rules require drug makers to be clearer and more direct when explaining their medications' risks and side effects. Wait a minute. You mean you can't tell everybody that they're going to have explosive diarrhea and die while they're, hanging out with their loved one on a cliff in a hot tub? Like, you can't do that anymore? The U.S. U.S. Food and Drug Administration spent more than 15 years crafting the guidelines, which are designed to do away with industry practices that downplay or distract viewers from risk information. Okay, can we pause? Does anybody here think that the FDA spent 15 years drafting these new rules that they just released right now before RFK comes into office? Anybody? Did they draft these rules over 15 years and just keep them on the back burner because they were making money off of Big Pharma? Which, by the way, FDA officials make a lot of money off of Big Pharma. There is an incestuous relationship there. So you had these rules to prevent the type of advertising that we have. Not that, by the way, not that I care. If you're distracted by the 60-plus-year-olds in a hot tub on a cliff, and you're not noticing the side effects might include death, disclaimer on there, I think that's kind of on you, or your doctor, combination of both of you. I don't particularly care all that much, but I do find it interesting that the FDA is like, we've been working on this for 15 solid years. Have you, though? It took you 15 years to come up with this? 15 years to just, hey, we got to be more clear with the risks and side effects, guys. It took you 15 years to come up with that? Or is it that RFK Jr. is about to be your daddy And now you're like, hey, we need to get on his good side. Otherwise, he's probably going to, make our lives a little difficult. Could be. The new rules, which cover both TV and radio, instruct drug makers to use simple, consumer-friendly language when describing their drugs without medical jargon, distracting visuals, or audio effects. Huh. Okay. A 2007 law directed the FDA to ensure that drug risk information appears in a clear, neutral, and conspicuous manner. Has it? Oh, I guess that's up to the beholder. The FDA has always required that ads give a balanced picture of both benefits and risks, a requirement that gave rise to those long, rapid-fire lists of side effects that are parodied on shows like Saturday Night Live and others. But in the early 2000s, researchers began showing how companies could manipulate images and audio to de-emphasize safety information. In one example, a Duke University professor found that ads for the allergy drug Nasonex, which featured a buzzing bee voiced by Antonio Banderas, I remember that ad, distracted viewers from listening to side effect information, making it harder to remember. All right. So they're saying that you can't do that now. But it took them 15 years to come up with that, even though we've got research and stuff like that out there that already showed them that. Huh. What impeccable timing the FDA has to change the rules. It's almost as if somebody had been out there talking about this for the past year or so on a major national stage, and that they're going to have some power over the FDA here soon. It's almost what it seems like. Could be. I suppose it's possible it took the FDA 15 years to come up with it. I mean, they are a bureaucracy. The FDA is not known for being very fast unless they want to push an experimental thing on you. So maybe it took them 15 years to figure that out. Somebody's like, oh man, RFK Jr. is going to be here. Yo, dust off that thing that we did 15 years ago that we didn't do because we're making money. And let's go ahead and do that now. And just let Big Pharma know that they're going to have to deal with it because there's not much we can do. Out of our hands, that we can't help them anymore. Got more coming up. Tuned into The Burning Truth. The Federalist has a really good article up there. Hard times ahead for the Dispatch, the Bulwark, and the rest of the Liz Cheney grifters. Ain't that the truth? The dwindling Never Trump faction has nothing left to offer but contempt for Trump voters and fantasies of destroying the Constitution. I'll only go through part of it. I'm not going to read the entire piece. It's a really good piece. I'll put it in the Daily Show Prep today. I would encourage you to spend some time and go over it. It's not super intense or long, but it's just don't necessarily have the time. Amid the celebration and relief at Donald Trump's landslide victory last week. Oh, did you see that that Chuck Schumer said that the election was close? We almost won, guys. It was really close. They don't have a mandate. Right, whatever. Amid the celebration and relief at Donald Trump's landslide victory last week on the right, there was a small yet shrill cadre of unreconstructed never-Trumpers who have convinced themselves that Kamala Harris would win, positively lost their minds. I should clarify that, like the vast majority of Americans on the right, I don't read or pay much attention to the dwindling readouts of never-Trumpism over at the Bulwark and the Dispatch. If I want anti-Trump programming, I can tune in to any corporate media outlet. But the Never-Trumpers' reaction to Trump's win is nevertheless instructive because they reflect the opinions and feelings of the GOP establishment in Washington, D.C., which has never reconciled itself to Trump's big tent populism and would much prefer to live under Democrat Party rule. What does that sound familiar? Like the readership of these publications, this isn't a particularly large group of people, and they have no real constituency outside of Washington, but they wield an outsized influence over certain factions of the Republican Party and various institutions of public life. They are overrepresented in the media as spokesmen for the right. They serve as a mouthpiece for elements of the deep state. Sound familiar? Threatened by a second Trump administration. And they somehow gained enough purchase with Democrats like Kamala Harris's campaign against all evidence that having Liz Cheney campaign with her in the Rust Belt would be persuasive to Republicans and moderates when there's no constituency in either party for sanctimonious D.C. warhawks. So it's important to understand them on some level, even if they are increasingly unhinged in their opposition to Trump. A post-election, the main thing to understand about them is that however badly Trump broke their brains in 2016, he has now rendered them unable to explain what happened last week, except to say that Americans themselves are the problem. Their anger and frustration is now shifting from Trump to his supporters, whom they clearly despise. They then talked about Bulwark's election night stream and everything else. And look, they called voters stupid. At one point, they said that Trump voters were too stupid to exist. Yeah, that's who they are. And these are two outfits. The Dispatch and the Bulwark are two outfits that are run by the people that used to be very prominent individuals on the right. People used to be trusted by Republicans and conservatives and even some libertarians to give you a accurate representation of what Republican ideals, what conservative ideals were all about. And they, of course, have become completely and totally unhinged since 2016. Now, there was some aspect when we were covering the election in 2016, there's some aspect of, okay, if you're scared about Trump, fine, just sit there. If you're a Republican, just wait. Just give him at least an opportunity to prove you wrong. And Trump in 2016 did prove all of them wrong. He governed as far more conservative than even Ronald Reagan. He did that as a non-ideological conservative because he's not an ideological conservative. He doesn't really care. He goes where the common sense argument for him is. And sometimes, by the way, that's wrong. In my opinion, at least. And so you've got these, we'll call them air quote, news publications, run by people who used to be respected on the political right, used to be right-wing news media, icons, stalwarts, sources. And now all they do is they work against Republicans. They work against Republican voters. They don't adhere to the conservative principles that they've always told you that they adhered to, which means they may never have adhered to them at all. They could have been misleading you this entire time as snakes in the garden. Who knows? So I'm sitting here, I'm watching, all of these Washington, D.C. national figureheads that used to be just these big voices in conservative media and Republican media, and they haven't been since at least 2016, 2015, really. And now they're going to collectively turn against Trump again, against Trump supporters, which used to be their readers, used to be their subscribers, and they're immediately going to start baiting and trying to appeal to liberals, leftists, and Democrats. And I wish I could say that it was only two conservative Republican publications that are doing that. But the truth is it's happening all over the country. Local level, national level, regional. People who used to be trusted voices on the right have abandoned the right and are promoting leftist policies, leftist politicians. completely opposed to conservative principles, attacking conservatives even when they vote the way that conservatives want people to vote. They're snakes in a garden. They are grifters. They are people who are only interested in making money. And after they have completely abandoned the movement and gone over to the left, they will, in more open fashions, start to court the left as their new audience, because there is no audience on the right-left for them. See you tomorrow.
Podcasts by Federated Media.